In the heart of ancient Greece, there lived a man whose name would echo through the centuries. His name is Socrates, born around 470 BCE, son of a stonemason named Sophroniskis and a midwife named Phaenarete. He wasn't tall or particularly handsome, nor did he hold any high office or military title. Instead, he wandered the streets of Athens, engaging people in conversation, challenging their assumptions, and asking questions that peeled away layers of ignorance. His method was simple, yet revolutionary, asking, "What do you mean by that?" until the other person was left thinking more deeply than they had ever done before. His style of conversation was different from any that had come before. Instead of lecturing, he would invite people to think for themselves, often leading them to realize that their knowledge was incomplete. This was the art of philosophy, but not as a lofty, abstract discipline. It was practical and grounded in the everyday lives of ordinary people. But what sets him apart from many famous figures in history is how little he actually wrote down. Nearly everything we know about him comes from the words of others, most notably his student Plato. Through Plato's dialogues, we hear the essence of Socrates, but we don't always know how much of that is Socrates' voice versus Plato's interpretation. This has led to a great deal of mystery around his life, and the gap between the man and the myth only adds to the intrigue. Despite being one of the most influential thinkers in history, he never sought fame or wealth. In fact, he rejected the idea of making a living by teaching, which was unheard of in a time when philosophy could be a lucrative career. He lived humbly, often without shoes, and supported himself through the work of his family. His wife, Xanthippe, was famously sharp-tongued, which is often used as a point of humor in the ancient texts, but it's worth noting that Socrates had a somewhat difficult domestic life. The contrast between his public wisdom and private struggles adds complexity to his character. Most famously, he was tried and sentenced to death for corrupting the youth of Athens and impiety, charges that, in the eyes of his accusers, stemmed from his questioning of traditional beliefs. Rather than flee into exile, as many of his contemporaries might have done, he chose to face his death with dignity, drinking the hemlock poison without protest. His decision to die for his principles, rather than live in dishonor, further solidified his place in history as a martyr for truth and reason. But there's something else not often discussed. Socrates was also a military man. He fought in several battles during the Peloponnesian War, and his courage was recognized by his comrades. In fact, during one battle, he saved Alcibiades, a prominent and controversial Athenian general, from capture. He wasn't just a philosopher. He was a soldier who understood the gravity of life and death, and it may have shaped his ideas on virtue and courage. His life and his death sparked a philosophical legacy that would eventually challenge the very foundation of how people understand themselves and the world around them. Yet, in the end, he left nothing but questions that continue to resonate through the ages. If you enjoyed this video and want to see more like it, don't forget to subscribe and hit the notification bell down below.